A few years ago, we grew and sold a business that forever changed our lives. At first, we really struggled trying to figure out which tools to use to help run and organize our community. But that all changed once we discovered Kajabi. Kajabi is the ultimate all-in-one platform that helps creators and entrepreneurs build successful online businesses by unlocking predictable, recurring revenue. No matter your niche, Kajabi makes it easy to turn your skills, passions, and experiences into enriching online courses, exclusive membership sites, subscription podcasts, thriving communities, personalized coaching, and more. The best part, Kajabi doesn't take a cut of your revenue because everything is owned and controlled by you, so you keep 100% of what you earn. And with Kajabi, you also get robust analytics, easy payment options, email marketing tools, and customizable website templates, all built in. You don't need a huge audience to make sustainable income. There are thousands of creators on Kajabi making 6 and 7 figures with less than 50,000 followers. Right now, Kajabi is offering a free 30-day trial to start your business if you go to kajabi.com/MU. That's KAJABI.com/MU. Go to kajabi.com/MU and join the creators and entrepreneurs who have made over $7 billion. More and more entrepreneurs and investors are discovering the awesome franchise opportunities that exist across a variety of industries. Franchising can simply be the better path, and interest in franchising is at an all-time high. Lucky for you, John Austenson, founder of FranBridge Consulting and a past Millionaire University guest, is here to help you explore the premier franchise opportunities today. John and his FranBridge Consulting team are part of the largest franchise brokerage in the U.S. and have vetted the market thoroughly. FranBridge is hands down the premier source for the best opportunities in the franchise world, including both active and passive opportunities. From tiny homes to youth soccer to industrial hoses to pets, senior care to mental health, and more. John has served as an Inc. 500 franchisor and is a multi-brand franchisee himself. And he does more placements than anyone else in the country. Sign up for a free consultation call with John today or get a free copy of his book, Non-Food Franchising, at franbridgeconsulting.com. That's franbridgeconsulting.com. Available in the U.S. and Canada.
At Evernorth Health Services, we believe costs shouldn't get in the way of life-changing care, and we're doing everything in our power to make it possible. Behavioral health solutions that also keep your projections at their best? It's possible. Pharmacy benefits that benefit your bottom line? It's possible. Complex specialty care that cares about your ROI? It's possible. Because we're already doing it. All while saving businesses billions. That's Wonder made possible. Learn more at evernorth.com/wonder.
I know you think you're special because you've built all these businesses, you made millions of dollars. You're nobody special. I know all kinds of guys like you that sacrifice their marriages, sacrifice their health, sacrifice everything that really matters in their life for business. You don't impress me one bit.
Welcome back, Millionaire University. It's me, Kirsten. I have another power-packed episode for you today. We are bringing on Jason Roberts. He is the owner of multiple multi-million-dollar businesses. And you're going to hear his story today and how he went through success, failure, success again, and some of those principles that we really do find essential to building something that is lasting and that can give you the ability to have a life and a business. This is such an important thing that people need to understand when they set goals and they want to become a millionaire, they want to make multiple millions of dollars in a business. There is a level of balance that is required for you to get to those levels of making that kind of money and still feel fulfilled, still feel successful. We talked a lot about identity, which neither one of us really anticipated going there, but we got some really, really powerful messages and thoughts that came out of that conversation. The thing I want to preface this episode with the very most is to be open-minded, to understand that there are so many lessons and mistakes that you don't have to make yourself, that you can learn from others, that you can listen to the conversation between Jason and I. You can skip ahead and have success a lot quicker. And we're going to talk about that on this episode, some of the things you can do to fast track your success, and it's probably not in the ways that you think. So without further ado, join me in welcoming Jason Roberts to the podcast. Hello and welcome to Millionaire University, Jason. So excited to have you and for you to share all of the amazing value bombs I know you're going to drop with our audience today. And I'm really personally looking forward to hearing your story. You have a really impressive background, so I'm not going to spoil it for anyone. I just want you to launch right into how amazing you are and your background in building multiple successful $1 million businesses. You are in the perfect place to share that. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to share. I feel like your audience is my audience. And so I hope that I can give as much as I can. Thank you for the intro. I feel like I've just screwed up and made more mistakes than most people. And that's a big part of why I have the success that I have. I think the more mistakes we make, the more we learn, the more we go in the right direction. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have built not only one, but 11 $1 million businesses. And that has not come, like you said, you've made a lot of mistakes. It hasn't just been a walk in the park. You've gone through a lot of the life lessons that we all have to learn as entrepreneurs, as people building businesses. So let's start kind of wherever you feel like the beginning of this journey is for you and building maybe your first business. And let's go from there.
Yeah, I'll start with the first one because that's kind of the beginning of the story. And I think it has a lot of lessons in it too. But I grew up in a small farm town. My mom and dad split when I was 12. And so my mom, was raising 3 boys. She had, she's a nurse, beautiful woman, but I didn't have like this entrepreneur family. I didn't have, role models or people like that. I think really my drive to make income came from the fact that my mom had to sacrifice every day so that me and my brothers could wear a polo shirt to school once a week or whatever it was. And I saw that pain, I saw her struggle. I saw how hard it was. I saw her never buy anything for herself ever. And I think it just kind of put a drive in me at an early age of like, if I could figure out ways to make money, I could take some of that burden away from her. If I could figure out just a way to make an extra $1,000, $2,000 a month, in high school or whatever it was, that was less that she had to put towards it. And so I always liked like business, money-making things at a young age, but I didn't have any role. I didn't have any really understanding way to do that. So by the time I was 18, my mom said, you either need to get a job or you got to go to college, one of the two, but Jane's staying here. And so I did both. I enrolled in college and I got a job. My first job was at a collection agency. I don't know. I'm sure some of you listeners have done that job. It wasn't a super fun job. I mean, if you like getting yelled at and cussed at for 8 to 10 hours a day, that's kind of what it was. But the cool part about it was, I made $60,000-$70,000 my first year at 18 years old collecting delinquent Discover card bills. And I was going to college full time. My buddies are all at Mizzou. I was at a community college. My buddies are at Mizzou. They're getting a 4-year degree. And, as an 18-year-old kid, my thought process was when they graduate with their 4-year degree, they're going to hope to land a job that pays half of what I'm already making. And so that, with not really any guidance, my thought process was, I'm already doing better than what that is. I'm going to drop out of college and see where this goes. But I always had this, every day I walked in, there was an ocean of cubicles, and every day I walked in there, I thought to myself, I don't know why God put me here yet, but I don't think it's for this. And nothing against people that work at a collection agency. It was an ocean of cubes. And I see people that are 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old. And every day I thought walking in there, like, this is a blessing that I have this job. At the same time, I've got to figure something out. This isn't what I'm destined for. This isn't for me. But I didn't know what that was. And one of the guys that worked with me at the collection agency, he left and he got into the mortgage business. And my boss was a good friend of his. And so we went to lunch one day. His name was Kevin Bosch. And we went to lunch one day and Kevin showed me his pay stub and he had made almost $300,000 his second year in the mortgage business. And I'm 19 by this point. And, again, early kid thinking, I'm thinking $300,000 a year is better than 80 grand a year. I get to help people buy their first house as opposed to calling on people who didn't pay their delinquent Discover card. This sounds like a good idea. So not knowing any better, I just called down to the state of Missouri and said, hey, what does it take to open a mortgage company? And they said, well, we'll send you the packet. And it was this big, thick packet of papers. I had all this stuff for me to go through. And I spent, a week going through all of it. The crazy part was like, this was year 2000. So it was a much different climate than it is now in the mortgage banking world. But there were 2 things that I didn't have. One was a $2 million surety bond and the other was 50 grand in cash. And both of them sounded like a mountain to me at 18 or 19 years old. I made some phone calls. I found out the surety bond wasn't a really hard thing to get, but I didn't have the 50 grand. So I spent the next year and just saved. I didn't, all my friends are going out, they're partying, they're doing what you do at 20 years old. And I'm at home living like a hermit, stacking so that I can try to get that $50,000. And April 15th, 2001, 2 weeks after my 21st birthday, I left that collection agency, and that was my last time in corporate America. But I woke up that next morning and I just had this sinking feeling of like, oh my God, what did I do? I spent the whole year figuring out how to open the company, how to get it licensed, how to get it going. And I mean, as crazy as this sounds, I didn't really know how to take a loan application. I just opened a mortgage company. And so we're calling friends. We're calling, as crazy as it sounds, in the spare bedroom of my condo, we're calling friends, we're calling family. We're trying to get refinances. We didn't know what we were doing, but we closed 8 loans that first month, and everybody agreed that they would bypass their paycheck if we could get a real office instead of my spare bedroom. So we did that. And it's a really cool story. We grew, we built, realized real quick that low interest rates may not last forever. And so we focused really heavy on purchase money. We grew that company to close to 100 employees at our peak. We went from the spare bedroom in my condo to around $20 million a year in annual revenue. I did everything that the lawyers and CPAs and all these super smart people told me to do. And things were going good. Every day that went by, we were growing. Every day that went by was more than yesterday. We were helping a lot of people. We became the #1 rural housing lender in the state of Missouri. And, the sky was the limit. And one day I came to work at 5:30 in the morning, which was my normal. I got to work at 5:30. I left at 10, 11 o'clock at night, pretty much every day. And, I was on that. If I work really, really hard right now, then someday I can have this great life. So let's sacrifice everything that matters right now, which was family, friends, myself, relationships, the whole bit, because I can be done by the time I'm 30 and have this incredible life. And I came to work one day in 2007, and we had 9 do not fund requests from Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac saying, you can't fund this loan, you can't fund this loan. And that was day one of the entire market collapse. And for those of you that were a part of that, that there wasn't any warning, there wasn't any heads up, there wasn't any anything. It was just like immediate stop. And so we went from bringing in millions of dollars a month in revenue to losing $100,000 a month over month over month over month. And we couldn't stop it. I tried to outwork it. It was 2.5 years we bled. And I got to the point where I had to make the decision, do I pay the office rent or do I pay my own mortgage payment? And, there was no job I was going to go get in the real world that was going to pay to support the lifestyle I'd created. So I said, let's pay the office rent. And I live in Missouri. Missouri's a 21-day foreclosure state. So I went 120 days delinquent on my house, 21 days later, homeless. I remember walking into the bank one day and I was in our underwriting department. And one of the girls on the sales floor said, Jason, somebody's stealing your truck. And I look outside and nobody was stealing it. It was the repo man. It was up on the back of the thing. And I'm out in the rain playing Let's Make a Deal. Like, I'll give you my keys if you let me get my cell phone and my wallet and everything out of there. And I vividly remember walking in the rain with a black trash bag with all my stuff. And we have the whole right wing of this big 3-story bank building. There's Webster University's on the 3rd floor. I'm walking in, I see all these people in the windows just watching this happen. And I can't even really put it into words. It was like, what the hell happened? What did I do wrong? What lesson am I trying to learn from this? What good can I possibly pull out of this terrible situation? I went from being a multimillionaire to homeless in a 2.5-year period of time. And that was,
crazy.
It was nuts. I spent 2.5 years in a really dark place. I hate to even say the word depressed because I'm an optimistic guy, but I mean, every single day getting kicked in the head worse than the day before, watching everything that you had worked for get stripped away. I don't say that to mean doom and gloom. I say it just to kind of paint a picture of where I was at, and I woke up one morning and said, if it's going to be, it's up to me. If I want life to change, I got to change. I have to do something about this. And that was really kind of the start of, because I was really feeling like everything I had worked for had been taken away. Like I kept repeating this in my head, like I'm losing everything. And I woke up that morning and I thought, Jason, everything has been taken from you financially. Material things, financial things, those were all taken away. But what wasn't taken away is like your will. What wasn't taken away was everything that you learned for the last 10 years building this business, building this company. None of that is gone. Everything that you learned to be successful on accident should still apply. What are the core things that you did to make that business successful? You should be able to take that and apply it in any other area and get similar results. And that's what I did. I went to this 4-day real estate investing training that this guy was teaching. It was the only time he ever taught it for free. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been there, because when I say like homeless, I really mean that. I was buying ramen noodles and water, hoping my debit card for $4 was going to go through, which was a super humbling experience. That was kind of the start of things and the transition to things. I filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy. My house sold at foreclosure auction, and I had deficiency. I mean, everything bad that you could possibly imagine, wrecked a marriage, everything bad that you could imagine bad. And then I woke up that day and said, we need a new map. We need a new blueprint. I think there's 3 things in business that you kind of need to be successful. 1 is a recipe or blueprint. 2 is take massive action. And 3 is a mentor, coach, or someone in your circle that's already achieving the results that you're trying to achieve. Those are the 3 things that I extracted at that time. And I applied that to the real estate investing side of things. We did 111 houses in 2011. We made $3.6 million in net profit from homeless. And I don't say that to say, hey, look at me. I say it because, for anybody that's going through a tough time, for anybody that's thinking about transitioning into self-employment, your mindset is so important. It so much dictates the results that you're going to get.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, there's so much in there that I want to unpack, especially there at the end when we transition from, I think anybody listening could see that coming when you mentioned the year that you started a mortgage business. We know, in hindsight, we knew what was going to happen. Yeah. So I love the quote that you said, and I'm wondering if you actually know where that comes from, because it's been a mantra of mine for years, and I'm not sure I know where it comes from. If it's to be, it's up to me. I love that one. Do you remember where that comes from?
I know the pastor of my church said it over and over and over again. If it's going to be, it's up to me. If it's going to be, it's up to me. And that, and if I can't, I must, which is a Tony Robbins quote. Those 2 things really impacted my psychology from a young age.
Yeah. Well, what I think is so cool about this too, is that being something that kind of surfaced in your mind after experiencing literally losing all the tangible things that we tend to work for as people who are driven. We're entrepreneurs. We love to build things. We love to create things, which I think is very inherent as human beings. And it can be easy to get caught up in our identity matching up with the amount of money we have, the amount that we've been able to accomplish, and then it gets stripped away. So it's a massive, and I've been through this. That's how come I can nail it. It's a massive re-identifying who you are at a core level and realizing that the amount of money you made, the success you had, is not reflective of your actual success as a human. And I've been in that moment before too, where I would tell myself, as soon as I've made that much money again, then I will be able to move forward. Then I'll be as successful. And I was like, no, wait a minute. I'm already more successful because I endured that and I learned from that. And now I'm smarter, stronger, and I get to take that with me. So I want to hear how that whole reframing of identity for you was so pivotal in you being able to go and build a new business. How did you take the skills and knowledge? And more importantly, how did you really find yourself and come out on top to where you could rebuild the confidence in spite of outwardly everything falling apart?
No, I didn't know we were going to go identity, but I'm so glad that you did, because I was 30 years old when that happened, and I woke up that was my identity. That mortgage company, I was a slave to that business. 5:30 in the morning till 11, 12 o'clock at night, 6 or 7 days a week. I missed Christmases. I missed birthday. You know what I mean? That was who I thought I was. I didn't know that. I didn't know until it was all stripped away. And then I wake up and I'm like, I don't know who I am outside. At 30 years old, I have no idea who I am outside of this business. And it was sad. And I had a mentor that came to my office and he started asking me life questions. He said, so what would you do? Let's just paint a picture. You don't have to work. You're financially independent. You don't need to worry about money ever again for the rest of your life. What would you do? And clear as day, I said, well, I'd start another business. And he's like, no. You don't have to start. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to worry about money. What would you do? And I said, well, I guess I'd help other people with their business. And he's like, no, man, what is wrong with you? He said, let me say this in a better way. What would you do for fun? And I was like, deer in headlights. And I consider myself a really fun guy. I'm a goofball. I'm a prankster. I've got good friends. And I couldn't answer the question. And I could feel it. I could feel it stick me in the chest of, oh my God, I'm 30 years old and I can't answer the question. What do I do for fun? I think of myself as this fun person. And he said, don't you have a motorcycle? And I said, yeah. And he said, when's the last time you drove it? And I said, I guess 3 years ago, because the tags are 3 years expired. So that's probably the last time I drove it. And he's like, well, all right, well, how about you go ride your motorcycle on Tuesday and Thursday from 10 to noon? I'm like, my mind is not computing this. Those are work all day, every day is work hours. How on earth can I go? And then he said, what else would you like to do? I couldn't. And so he's extracting from me. And he said, didn't you tell me one time your dad was a pilot and you always wanted to learn how to fly? And I was like, yeah, but I want to learn how to fly a helicopter. And he's like, all right, well then how about on Wednesdays from 12 to 3, you take helicopter lessons? And he starts putting all this life stuff in. which you would think to a normal person would be like exciting, fun, whatever. And my anxiety level's going through the roof because I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to, my identity was so intertwined with work. And my dad, he beat that into me as a kid. Your job as a man is to work and provide. And I agree with that. Like, I don't disagree. I associated work and provide into first one at the office, last one to leave every day of the week. And then the final conversation at the end, he said to me, and this forever changed my life, forever changed my life. He got kind of rude. And he said, Jason, you're nobody special. He goes, I know you think you're special because you've built all these businesses, you made millions of dollars. He goes, you're nobody special. I know all kinds of guys like you that sacrifice their marriages, sacrifice their health, sacrifice everything that really matters in their life for business. You don't impress me one bit. He goes, you know what would be impressive? If you could grow your businesses, if you could change more lives, if you could help more people in 3 hours a day instead of 15. If you could do that, that would be impressive. And that was the first time ever in my life. I'm like, what do you even mean? What does that even mean? That doesn't compute. That's not real. Like, that doesn't exist. And I went to this mastermind and I saw all these other business owners that were like living life on purpose, but still had extremely successful businesses. And it wasn't until I saw it with my own eyes that I was like, oh, wow, I thought I was something. I'm not. I've got a whole lot to learn. And it was such an eye-opening, forever life-changing experience for sure.
Wow. Well, I think it's a rite of passage that if you're lucky enough, you go through. Honestly, I feel like if you make it to 70 years old and you haven't learned that lesson, there's a lot more room for regret than learning this at 30.
1,000%.
I was about the same age when everything I thought I was building up that was so important crashed and burned. And everything from then on, it's been a totally different rebuilding, living on purpose and focusing on the things that really do matter. And the beautiful thing is you can still impact people and you can still build something amazing. It's just the intention behind it leads to greater rewards, at least in my experience. So
absolutely. And now you can teach people how to build a business and have a life, which money is great, but I can introduce you to all kinds of millionaires and multimillionaires that are unfulfilled and miserable. And like I used to equate money to happiness. And I think money's a magnifying glass. Like, it just magnifies the emotions that you're currently experiencing. And if you're unfulfilled and unhappy, all the money in the world doesn't change that. So what if there was a way to build a business and experience life at a level 10? That was my whole shift in paradigm.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because I know that's basically what you do now is really help and encourage people to create a life and to be able to have a successful multi-million-dollar business, probably whatever that goal is, and to be able to have the capacity to do more and have an actual life. So I know that before we talked, you mentioned that you have some pretty fundamental ways that you help people get out of their own way to be able to scale up businesses, kind of live the dream. So let's dive into that a little bit about, because now that we know you know what you're coming from, we know where you're coming from, and you definitely know what you're talking about. You've built it yourself. So yeah, let's help all the people listening to avoid our mistakes if possible.
So when I kind of recreated this whole thing of like rules and boundaries around things, like, and again, I'm the guy that was an absolute slave to my business forever. And so this is, if I would have heard what I'm saying to everyone now, then I wouldn't have believed it. I would have discounted it. I just want to say, I get it. I'm you. I understand, but just hear me out. At a minimum, hear me out. So one of the things that I did was create boundaries around that. My new work schedule was Monday through Thursday, 10 to 2, which seems absolutely insane. But I had all these things that I had been telling myself that were important. Like, I had said to myself every single day for 10 years straight, I want to go to the gym. I want to be more healthy. But I worked 80 hours a week. And so every day another loan app came up, another closing came up, something came in the way that I didn't go do that thing. And you start to beat yourself up. And over time, you have this whole issue with, I don't honor my commitments, even though I was working like crazy, but like I wasn't doing any of these things that I said I wanted to do. And so that 2:00 barrier was put into place so that I would go to the gym at 2 every day. And I started doing that. And then I started to see in real life, like, when you have 15 hours a day to make business decisions, you take 15 hours a day to make business decisions. The other thing that you do is when you have 15 hours a day, you put yourself on the assembly line in all types of different areas that you absolutely should not be on. Like, we all have our own unique genius zone. We all have the thing that, like, our inborn talent that God gave us that we're really, really good at. But our problem is, like, how much time are you spending? Ask yourself that right now. And I coach multi-million-dollar business owners. And one of the first things I do when I bring them on is I say, how much time per week are you spending in your unique genius zone? And they always answer the question 80 to 90%. Every single person says that. And I say, okay, cool. What I want you to do, I have this stupid little work log, and all they have to do is write down the different things that they're doing throughout the day. Anytime they change a task, they document it. And I have them do it for a week, and then we get on another call. And every time, I've done this with hundreds of people, every time they get back on, they're like, oh my God, Jason, I'm probably 10% of the time. And where I'm really brilliant, 90% of my time I'm spent doing $10 an hour stuff that doesn't move the needle. And these are super successful people, you know what I mean, by all standards. And when I'm able to help them shift that, I can 5 times the business in a year. Like I'm able to take people from $1 million in revenue to $3 million in revenue in 12 months because like something that simple that we just don't grasp. So I just wanted to frame that first, but I have 4 pillars that I zero in on when I'm trying to take somebody from where they're at into where they're trying to go. Number 1 is metrics. Number 2 is model. Number 3 is mindset. Number 4 is mentor. I'll start with the metrics piece. And this was something that for the first probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years that I was in business, running my own multi-million-dollar business, this is crazy, but, and I'm sure a lot of listeners are in the same boat. I always just had the mindset of, as long as we're bringing in more than we're spending, we're in good shape. You know what I mean? As long as we're making more money than's going out. And when we got wrecked, we had 2.5 years worth of reserves. So I wasn't irresponsible. I mean, by most standards, I think 2.5 years of reserves is pretty good. But when you have more money coming out than's coming in, it doesn't matter how much money you have in reserves. Eventually, it's going to run out. Mm-hmm. So when I say metrics, 90% of new businesses fail within the first 5 years. And the reason why they fail, I think there's a recipe to success in business, and most people just don't know it. They're really, really good at something in corporate America, and they say, you know what, I'm an ace at this. I should open up my own business. The second they do that, they go from spending 100% of their time in the area that they're an ace, and now it's all spread out to all these different things. They're spinning all these plates. And so the first thing that I really have people zero in on is their metrics. If you're tracking the KPIs or the metrics inside your business, and you come to me and say, Jason, I'm struggling, or I can probably in 5 to 10 minutes figure out where the problem is.
Want to know a secret? There's more to becoming a millionaire than making money. We talk a lot about building businesses and taking the road less traveled to achieve your goals. But the most successful entrepreneurs we know will tell you investing and growing your money is an essential component to creating wealth, which is why we're really excited about today's sponsor for this episode, Acorns. Acorns makes it easy to start automatically saving and investing for your future. You don't need a lot of money or expertise to invest with Acorns. In fact, you can get started with just your spare change. Acorns recommends an expert-built portfolio that fits you and your money goals, then automatically invests your money for you. It's never too late to start growing, and it's never too early either. You've heard us say about 1 million times on this podcast that it takes small, consistent steps to build big results. And we love Acorns and how accessible it is to people at all levels of investment knowledge. So head to acorns.com/MU or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. Paid non-client endorsement may not be representative of all clients. Tier 1 compensation provided. Compensation provides an incentive to positively promote Acorns. View more disclosures at acorns.com/MU. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. Please consider your objectives, risk tolerance, and Acorns fees before investing. Acorns Advisors LLC. Acorns is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Brokerage services are provided to clients of Acorns by Acorns Securities LLC. Member FINRA/SIPC. For more information, visit acorns.com.
Shopify has already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify POS is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in-line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/MU, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/MU to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/MU.
And what I mean by metrics is like, even at a base level, how much marketing is going out? Out of the marketing that's going out, how much inbound response is coming in? Out of the inbound responses coming in, how many meaningful conversations are we having? Out of the meaningful conversations that we have, how many offers for our product or service are we making? Out of the offers that we're making, how many get accepted? Out of the ones that get accepted, how many close? Like that's base level metrics for any company. Now we can get way more refined with that, but if you're just simply tracking those things, I can run through those areas and tell quickly where the drop off is. I had a client from Tucson that hired me to help her build a business. And she came to St. Louis. We spent the whole week. We built the whole thing out. She went back to Tucson. She implemented everything that we did. And she called me after the first week and she's like, Jason, this was the best money I ever spent. We got 76 calls from potential clients. Couldn't be happier. Thank you so much. And I'm like, sweet. That's, I couldn't ask for a better result. That's what I want to happen. She was so ecstatic. And then she calls me about a week after that and she's pissed. She's mad. She's upset. I took her money. She's so mad. And I'm like, wait a second. There's either a mental instability issue here or something's wrong. Like, why is she in a totally different place? So I asked her, I said, what happened? Kathy, you were in such a good place and now you're not. She said, not a single one of those 76 people wanted to do business with me. And I instantly knew what the problem was. She used to own a big CPA firm. And in her CPA firm, she did books and bookkeeping, and nothing against CPAs, but like her last 20 years had been spent in a room by herself doing spreadsheets and numbers. And she didn't spend the last 20 years interacting with people on a daily basis, but yet she put herself on the assembly line in the sales position in what we had built. And so I instantly knew there's no chance in heck that 76 people responded to the marketing and not a single one of them wanted to do business. It was that she was in the wrong place within her company. And so by going through those metrics of how much marketing went out, what was the return out of the inbound response, meaningful conversations, offers made, it was 76 inbound response, 0 meaningful conversations. I automatically know if you've been in business long enough, you know what the problem is. There's a breakdown here. It's not that the business doesn't work. It's that area doesn't work. So we hired an acquisitions person. We got her out of the way and bang, it started rolling exactly how it should be. She was super back to happy, but metrics, super important. Dive into those things, start to understand it's not the business. It's almost never the business that's not working. It's some part of the assembly line broke down and we just need to fix it.
So what do you recommend to people who might still be in the early stages where at the beginning you have to do a lot of these things on your own? Because I know sometimes people have some capital that they can play around with. They might be inclined to just go put some ad spend, put the money into ad spend. And I ask this even for myself personally, because I think I have a tendency to do that. And I'm extremely capable at multiple things. I'm one of those jack of all trades entrepreneurs, but I'm not dumb enough to think that I'm actually in the genius zone when I do all of those things. I know what my genius zone is, and I know I can do all the pieces, but what if you're in a position where you can't necessarily spend thousands of dollars to put people in those spots? How can you even set yourself up from the beginning to stay in your genius zone, or is that just impossible when you're beginning?
No, I used to think it was impossible because I did the same thing that everybody else did. The first thing that I would say respectfully is stop lying to yourself. And what I mean by that is we are not good at everything, okay? I am the last person on earth that should be doing QuickBooks, period. Like I'm going to screw it up. I'm going to mess it up. I'm going to create a way bigger mess. We think we're saving money. We're not saving money. We're costing money. And so one of the things that I would say is first understand what you're good at and what you're not good at. One of the biggest mistakes I made in business early on is I spent so much time trying to get better at the things that I was an F or a D player at and move it up. I spent so much time. The real way successful entrepreneurs work is take the area that you're a B plus and turn it into an A and delegate out all those other things. So what I would say if you're starting with no money first is get really, really clear on what you're really good at. And then try to build, like when I help somebody build like an infrastructure of a company, a startup, I'm understanding what the entrepreneur is really, really good at. And then I'm trying to build around it. So for instance, I've got a construction company I'm working with in Texas, and the guy's brilliant and he does the most amazing work. You see the pictures, you wouldn't even believe that he didn't come out of a magazine. He's that good. But that's what he's good at. But he's a mess everywhere else. The first thing that we have to do, like if you were to drop me off in another state with zero money, zero anything, and say, start over, create a business from scratch, the first thing that I would do is find an assistant, find somebody, because I know what I'm good at, I know what I'm terrible at, and I would find somebody that could do that piece. And you say, okay, well, how are you going to do that with no money? This is the mistake that I think money motivated people, and we're entrepreneurs, we're all money motivated to some degree, right? I think the mistake we make is that we think everyone is like us. Everyone is money motivated. One of the most brilliant people I ever hired in any business that I've ever had, she came in, her husband worked at corporate Mastercard. He made really, really good money. She did not have to work. Her kids finally got to the age where they were going to school a couple hours a day, and she just wanted human interaction. She just wanted to be around people. You know what I mean? She just wanted to have a couple hours a day. She looked me in the eye and she said, all I want to do is make a couple $100 a month to pay for my craft stuff that I like to do. And so we brought her in at $10 an hour to do marketing stuff. And then within a couple hours, I realized like, this girl is genius level smart. Why on earth is she working here? Why is she working for $10? But she wasn't money motivated. She didn't care. And I help so many business owners. It doesn't cost thousands of dollars a month. Even if we can get somebody for $10 or $15 an hour for 5 or 10 hours a week, it doesn't have to cost a lot. We can offload a lot of this stuff that's we're, as entrepreneurs, we're always the bottleneck in our own organization. If we can take some of those things and get them delegated out, or even better yet, find somebody and make an offer to them and give them a percent, not a percent of the business, but a percent of the revenue that comes in once it comes in. So if you don't even have $100 a week to pay them when the job comes in, I can't tell you how many times I see people do that. And like, you think in your mind, who's ever going to do that? Again, there's all kinds of people that aren't working because they need the money. They want to be part of a team. They want human interaction. They want to be part of something that is good. That's where our belief systems, we have this whole belief of what people will do and won't do. I would just tell you, question that a little bit and think outside the box. Instead of framing things of what won't happen, start asking, how could I get this done in this situation? How could I find somebody to help me build this company without having to pay them until we start making money? We start asking better questions, we start getting better answers.
I love that. Fantastic answer. And I had this aha moment in recent years where months and months had gone by where I'd had a lot of just lack of clarity around something that I wanted to do in my business. And then finally got to it and I realized I could have hired somebody and paid them, even if it was thousands of dollars, and they probably could have gotten me there in days, hours, if not less, instead of 6 months. And I thought, okay, I now get it. How much money have I lost over the last 6 months? Not selling something because I was trying to find the right thing to sell, and I could have gotten there so much faster. So it's one of those lessons in hard knocks that you don't have to learn the hard way. Hopefully if you're listening to this, you're listening to Jason and I both testify that there are worse things than spending some money to get where you want to be, because it will get you to not the finish line, but it'll get you to the return a lot quicker by not trying to do everything yourself. And I know that's one of the things you mentioned as your 3 things in the beginning is a mentor, somebody in your life that can get you out of your way faster. So I agree.
Absolutely. I mentioned in the beginning, I also mentioned it as one of the 4 pillars that I teach. Right.
Oh, yeah.
It was number 4, it was mentor. One thing that, like, again, when you study, I've been blessed to travel around the country and speak in front of tens of thousands of people and work with a lot of different business owners. And like a doctor that, sees patients, you start to see symptoms. You start to see patterns of the 10% of businesses that make it and become super successful and the 90% that don't. Like, you start to see what they're doing, and then it starts to become crystal clear after 24 years of what that recipe is. And so when I say mentor, newer entrepreneurs tend to have a mindset that says, once I start to get some success, once I start to make some money, once I do this thing, then I'll hire a mentor, then I'll hire an assistant, then I'll do right. They have this if-then kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Successful business owners, the ones that make it, the ones that get to scale quickly, their frame of reference is, I bring that person in first before I do anything else. And so, like, we bought a 94-bed assisted living facility 2.5 years ago. I've never worked in the medical space, but I know business. And so there's a lot to learn, but like, that was totally outside my world. That was totally outside my comfort zone. It's 94 beds. It's big. It's got 50 employees. It's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I live in St. Louis. I made myself a deal that I can contribute 5 hours a week to owning and running this business. That's it. So that was my deal from the very beginning, because I knew this is something that could take over my life if I let it. And so I put the right things in the right place. But the first thing I did before we ever closed on it, before we ever spent a dime, the first money that I spent in that business was finding a mentor that was, I don't mean a Facebook guru. I mean somebody that is, my rule for coaches and mentors is find someone that's actually doing what they're teaching at the level that you want to duplicate. And so I who do I know that knows somebody? And I asked around, and I found a guy that was the number 1 Medicare biller in the state of Missouri. He has 4,000 residents. And through a friend of a friend, I got an introduction, and I hired him for a couple hours to mentor me on give me everything you have. What do I not know that I don't know? What am I not seeing? What am I missing? What are the obstacles? What are the hoops? What are the things that are going to jam me up that I don't even know about? What is my average cost per resident per day meal cost? Should it be $2 a meal or should it be $5 a meal? All these things that seemingly don't matter that have an enormous impact on your business. That mentor didn't cost me money. He made me hundreds of thousands. If you minus out what I paid him, I'm still positive $250,000 after 12 months because I got there just exactly what you said. I got there 100 times faster. I didn't have to spend 10 years muddling around, losing money to figure it out. Or better yet, I didn't have to be in that 90% of businesses that fail in the first 5 years because it took me 5 years to figure it out. We knew it right off the bat. And so that's another huge part of whether you find somebody you have to pay or don't. Find somebody that's achieving the result that you want to achieve and align yourself with them. If you want to be a national championship bodybuilder, find somebody that won a national championship and model what they do, eat what they eat, lift what they lift, do the workouts exactly how they do. You're going to get a really similar result. We make it harder than it is sometimes. We're on this island by ourselves and we don't have the answers. And so we have to just try to figure it out on your own. Faster path is find somebody that's already made all the mistakes and learn from them.
Yeah. Even if that for now is listening to these episodes and actually taking action from it and not thinking, oh, they don't know my life. They don't know me. Like this is really great advice, stuff that you would get paying a lot of money to a coach. So absolutely. I know because I forced you into pillar 4, we've now bookended. Let's talk about those middle 2 pillars.
Sure. No, it was perfect because you were right on with what we were talking about. The second one is model. And so one of the things I do with like bigger businesses, and you should do this from even a startup company. I have this exercise that I do. It takes about 8 hours, takes a whole day. I call it a business breakdown. And it's basically where we tear the whole business apart down to nuts and bolts, and then we put it back together the way that we think it should be, right? Because we almost always build it wrong first. And then we're so caught up in the way that it is now that it seems like way more work to tear it down and rebuild it correctly than it does to just try to fix it. But if anybody that's in construction, it's easier to build a new construction house than it is to rehab an existing house. So sometimes we just need to tear the whole thing down to nothing and rebuild it from scratch. But by model, and we kind of talked about this a little bit, but what I mean is like, where are you good? Do a personality profile test and Myers-Briggs, Strength Finders, Colby Index, DISC, any of those that can kind of tell you where you're good and where you're not. But I tear the business down. The first thing that I do is have the business owner list out every single task that has to happen from start to finish in order for their product or service to make it from inception to close, no matter what it is, right? Every single task. And sometimes it's like, we're just throwing stuff on the board. It's 300 or 400 line item. I mean, every stupid little thing from QuickBooks to marketing to data collection to anything it could possibly be, just throw it all up there. Second thing that I want you to do, and this is actually really good for brand new business owners too, because you should do this before you ever get started. Build the business out as if you don't work there. How would it need to look for it to operate and profit on its own, whether you're there or not? And so the second step is identify the departments within the business that the business would need to be successful. Does it need a marketing department? Does it need a sales department? Does it need acquisitions? Does it need post-closing? What different departments does it need? The third thing we do is then take all those 400 individual tasks and we organize them by department. And as simple as this sounds, it's almost always wrong. We've got the wrong people doing the wrong things, which screeches the brakes on our bus. And we have throughput problems because you got Jason doing QuickBooks and you got Kathy doing sales and we're wondering why we're not getting results. And so the third part is identifying what departments all those individual tasks should go into. Fourth thing I have the entrepreneur do is look at that thing, and I do a $1 per hour exercise. And that is, how much money do you want this business to pay you within the next 12 months? Is it 100 grand? Is it 500 grand? Is it $1 million? Whatever it is. And then how many hours per week, then how many hours per year are you willing to trade away of your life in order for that amount of money? And then we divide those two and it gives you your $1 per hour. And most people are at $500, $1,000 an hour, whatever it is. And so we look at this board that has 500 things on it. And I say, now I want you to go up there and I want you to circle the things that pay $1,000 an hour. And you can probably guess out of 500 tasks, how many of them pay that $1 per hour. And it's 3, it's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. It's a very small amount. And so it has this huge impact on people. It's like, Oh my gosh. And so when you look at that math equation that I gave you, hours per year, your total dollars that you want to earn divided by hours per year equals your dollar per hour. Anytime you're spending doing $10 an hour work instead of $1,000 an hour work, what do you have to do in the equation? Well, if you degraded by 10 the dollars per hour, you have to increase by 10 the hours worked in order to hit the same $1 million or whatever number it is that you want. So if you had 30 hours a week down that you were going to work, now you got to times that by 10. So now you have to do 300 hours per week at $10 an hour to equal what, you know what I mean? And this is where, as simple as this sounds, if you're not in the 7 figures plus in your business yet, this is almost 100% why, because you're spending the few work hours that you have doing things that don't move the needle enough.
Mm-hmm.
So just going through the process of structuring that and building that model will help you to start to understand where things need to be, where you need to be within the organization, and how to make it work most efficiently and most profitably.
Well, there's a lot of really, really good stuff in here that you've shared with us, and I love every single one of those pillars. So what was I know that all of them started with M. What was the word for the third one?
Third one's mindset. I would tell you that this is probably the most important one. If we look at the primary reason 90% of businesses fail in the first 5-10 years, it's almost always a mindset issue. Anytime I have a client call and they're like, Jason, we're 10% down revenue wise this month versus last month. The market's changing. This has happened. And these things aren't the same anymore. I hear it, but I almost always know, no, something changed a little bit and you created a story in your mind that all these things are what's happening, and they may very well be happening in the market, but that's not necessarily why we're having this. It's almost always a mindset. I have to shift their mindset back into the place of abundance. I have to shift their mindset back into place. I think 80% of success in anything is your psychology and 20% is mechanics. Don't get me wrong. The right mechanics will get to the finish line 10 years sooner. No doubt. But all the right mechanics in the world. I was on a flight to Phoenix a couple of years ago, going to speak in front of about 400 business owners, entrepreneurs. And I had like this internal struggle of, why am I even doing this? And I'm like the super positive, optimistic guy. But this thing came over me like, why am I even doing this? And the thought that I had was, I can go speak in front of 400 people and I can tell them where there's $1 million worth of gold buried under the ground, give them the exact map of how to go get it. And only 5 or 10 of them will get in their car, drive there and dig up the $1 million. But they all came to the meeting to hear how to get the $1 million, but only a handful of them go get it. And then I'm like, why? Why do we as human beings say we want something, go to the gym, start a business, grow our business, be a better husband, be a better wife, physically fit, whatever. We all have these things that we say that we want. It's the same reason why 80-90% of New Year's resolutions fail by the end of January. It's the exact same thing. And you know what I mean? It's across the board. So why do we do this? And that's what really set me on the path of that's what I need to figure out. That's where I can make the biggest difference with business owners and entrepreneurs in the world. That's what's jamming them up. It's whatever that mechanism is. And what that comes down to is mindset. Your beliefs, your identity. If you're trying to lose 20 pounds and you've been telling yourself for 3 years that you want to lose 20 pounds and you haven't, it's because there's some sort of internal conflict. And that internal conflict is that you identify with the person that you are right now. And you're never going to lose the 20 pounds no matter what diet and maintain it, no matter what diet you do, no matter what you eat, no matter how you work. If you don't shift your belief set to being the person that's 20 pounds skinnier, what does that person think? What does that person believe? What does that person eat? How does that person operate? If you don't start identifying with this person and you continue to identify with this person, you're always going to be this. If we want life to change, we got to change. And it's the same in business. If you want to have a multi-million-dollar company, but you identify your beliefs are wrapped around with who you are right now, and that is, I've never started a company before. I don't have money to pay people. I don't have the resource. If this is what you're telling yourself, and that is what your identity is aligned with, this isn't going to come, and you're going to fail. We have to start thinking about, how does the person that we want to become think? What do they believe? How do they approach their decisions? How do they see the world? What's their map of the world? I don't think any of us experience reality as it actually is. I think we all experience it through the map that we've created over time since childhood. And all belief is something that we've told ourselves over and over and over again until we believe it to be true. It doesn't mean that it is true. It just means that we've told ourselves it enough times that we believe it to be true. And that was a big shaker for me too. Like, oh, wait a second. I have this firm belief, like I'd argue it to the death that I believe this thing. And that thing could be totally wrong. I've just told myself it's real enough times. And so where is that showing up in our life? Where is it showing up in our business? Where is it showing up in our mindset? And if I can help, I have a 16-week training that I take people through to reshift their identity, reshift their mindset, reshift all of those things. And it's a process like anything else, but that's where our jam up is. That's the part we need to fix.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. This is absolutely what I coach people on as well. So I'm like, you're speaking my language. This
That's awesome.
is exactly the root of everything. And I love it. It's so important. It's so critical. And I think we have a good variety on this podcast of getting into the technical, talking about strategies. And then I see this come up every single time is how important mindset is. And I know that Justin and Tara would completely agree and echo that. It is critical. It's one of the most critical things. So I love the 4 pillars. I agree wholeheartedly as an entrepreneur, as somebody who has made the mistakes, done the right things. I definitely know that you have presented information that is absolutely true. You know, it's not just a belief, it's absolute fact. So thanks for coming on and sharing that.
Of course.
You're awesome, Jason. So if people want to work with you, you mentioned you have a 16-week coaching program. I know you're out doing a lot of speaking. Where can they connect with you for more?
So I put together, like I said several years ago, when I went through that, I put together a 16-week training because what I realized is like, I can help you with business. I can help you with strategy. I can help you with marketing. I can do all those things. Those are the mechanics. All that in the world isn't going to create a big enough change if we don't fix what's in between our ears. You know, if we don't realign that, I'm coaching you on an uphill battle that we're just going to keep doing. I have to create that shift first to get to where we want to go. So I created a 16-week training. It's not super expensive, but it's expensive and not everybody can do it. And so I realized I need to kind of condense that. So for people that want something now that can create positive change now. And so we condense that into 7 different modules. It's about 3 hours long. It sells on my website for $1,000. I wanted to do something really cool and give it away to your entire, for completely free for anybody that wants to go grab it. Go to www.ultimatesuccessblueprint.com. You have to put in the coupon code millionaire. If you don't put that in, it's going to try to charge you the $997. It's going to try to charge you $1,000. You put that coupon code in, it's completely free. There's no strings attached. Nobody's calling to try to sell you anything after the fact. It's my gift to you. Absolutely life-changing. If there's something in your life that you want to take from where it is to this new place that you want to go, whether it's business, whether it's your marriage, whether it's whatever it is that you've been telling yourself that you want, do that. Start there. I promise you it will have an enormous difference. Awesome. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Coach Jason Roberts, on either one of those platforms. Happy to help or serve in any way that I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. It's been so great to talk
thank
to
you.
you.
This is super fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, you know where to go. Thanks again, Jason. What did you think about that Millionaire University? I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. I always feel so lucky to be on the receiving end of these conversations with such brilliant minds who are out there making impact and building something so cool. But I really keep you in mind when I have these conversations. What would I want to know if I was at all these various stages of building, scaling a business? And so I hope that you learned a lot and that you feel a lot more prepared and empowered in your identity as a business owner, and that you won't wait and delay for everything to be perfect and lined up, and that you won't postpone your success by thinking that you have to achieve a certain thing before you're allowed to invest in your growth. I love that we talk a lot about removing yourself and getting into your genius zone and allowing yourself to exist there and not thinking you have to do all the things. Justin and Tara are excellent at this, and I know that this has been driven home multiple times on this podcast about how we don't have to do everything to be successful. We need to put the right people in the right places, and Jason's message and understanding of this perfectly aligns with what we're trying to achieve here at Millionaire University and trying to help you build something impactful, powerful, and successful. We would love to hear your thoughts and love to hear your favorite part of this conversation between Jason and I will see you guys on the next episode of Millionaire University. Have a great day.
Hey, Eric Fisher here, and if you love the conversations and lessons happening on this show, and you've heard my voice before, you'll love my show, Beyond the To-Do List. It's a podcast about productivity and getting things done in all the areas where we wear multiple hats and roles, but also about the true meaning of productivity, living a more meaningful life. Look, you've got a never-ending to-do list, but add this podcast to your to-do list and it will help you tackle the rest. Go right now wherever you're listening to this and search Beyond the To-Do List and hit follow or subscribe. Start listening and get that boost for your productivity that you've been needing. Again, that's Beyond the To-Do List. Search in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this podcast.